Hello and welcome to the Webcast for Monday, August 11th. I'm South Ops meteorologist Jonathan O'Brien. Visible satellite this morning shows the marine layer is again quite shallow, especially across the south coast, and we have mostly clear skies across the interior. The only other feature of note is once again a solid plume of smoke coming off of the Gifford fire, which has been more or less continuously active for over 10 days now. Here's a look at the overnight recoveries from last night. They were not too bad overall, with generally good recoveries in the lower elevations and fair recoveries in the mid and upper elevations, with some locally poor values in the deserts and typical drier spots. We'll likely be seeing some similar or possibly somewhat drier values the next couple of nights. Water vapor satellite shows strong high pressure is centered just to the west offshore of California, and it's going to remain nearby for another couple of days, bringing continued warm to hot weather before a pattern change later this week. Here's a look at today's forecast highs. It is going to be a hot one out there, in some cases, especially in central California, about the hottest we've seen during this recent summery stretch, though we're really only a few to several degrees above average. Tomorrow we'll see very similar temperatures with 80s to low 90s across the mountains and mid-90s to 105 in the valleys. Looking ahead, however, we do have relief in sight. Our area of high pressure will shift eastward over the next couple of days, then begin to weaken and break down in the midweek period as troughing pushes in off of the Pacific. And from there, we settle back into what's really been the prevailing pattern of this rather cool summer, that is one of persistent troughing along and off the west coast, which has helped keep our temperatures below normal for the majority of the summer, and that is where we'll be heading again by later this week. Temperatures will begin to cool just a couple of degrees on Wednesday, but a steady cooling trend will continue right through the upcoming weekend, with temperatures falling several degrees below normal. Valley highs will drop mainly into the mid-80s to low 90s by this weekend. Here's a look at Saturday's forecast highs. Minimum humidity will be mainly in the upper single digits and teens above and inland from the shallow marine layer influence through Tuesday or Wednesday, so it remains a dry air mass out there. There will also continue to be areas of fair to poor recoveries overnight, especially in mid and upper elevations. But by later this week, minimum humidity will increase to between 12 and 25% above and inland from the marine influence, and that marine layer will become substantially deeper, with low clouds pushing into the coastal valleys and maybe even making a run at the lower coastal slopes by the end of this week. Winds will mostly follow typical patterns this week. Southwest to northwest winds of 15 to 25 miles per hour with gusts to 40 miles per hour will surface across the mountain ridges and desert passes in the afternoons and evenings through the weekend, but may be a little stronger on Wednesday and Thursday as the ridge breaks down. So that'll be something to watch out for. Wednesday in particular will probably have some of the better overlap of lingering warm and dry weather, but also an increase in winds before the more substantial cooling sets in later in the week. And finally, we do have some storm chances in the forecast this week. We've seen some isolated monsoonal thunderstorms across the Southern California mountains and deserts the past couple of days, as the elusive 2025 monsoon at least briefly shows its face. But while an isolated storm in those areas can't be totally ruled out today either, it looks like a lesser risk. From there, the monsoon will be back on hiatus, but the incoming troughing pattern will generate some instability of its own. As a result, isolated afternoon showers and thunderstorms will be possible over the Sierra region any day from Tuesday through Saturday, mainly across the high terrain. None of these days are likely to be high lightning strike count days, but at least a few storms are likely to form. Any storms should be slow-moving and wet, with minimal concern for significant fire activity, especially amidst the cooling temperatures. Still, a couple of new high-elevation lightning ignitions are possible this week. Our already very dry dead fuel moistures will remain on steady or falling trends for another couple of days as the warm and dry weather continues. Fuels will be highly receptive across all classes, both dead and live, in most of the region for the next few days, though live fuel moisture still remains somewhat elevated across portions of the Sierra. By later this week, however, we'll start to see some meaningful relief as dead fuel moisture steadily tick upwards in an increasingly cool and humid pattern, especially along and west of the coastal slopes, but even for inland areas as well. The large fire threat will remain elevated through Wednesday as the very warm and dry conditions continue, with active burning conditions during the daytimes and potential for well-established fires to burn actively at night as well due to areas of poor humidity recovery. However, fire concerns will gradually decrease later this week through the weekend as temperatures cool and the marine layer deepens, with fire potential trending below normal for this time of year. Right now, this looks like more of a short-term reprieve with potential for hotter weather returning perhaps as early as the middle of next week. But this should be a nice break in the weather to help with containment on existing fires and reduce the risk of new ones. Expect moderate initial attack activity to continue through Wednesday with lighter IA by the end of this week. That's it for today's webcast. Thanks for joining us. The next one will be on Tuesday, August 12th.